I mean, the story of my career is just the story of a whole lot of real good luck. My guess is that the best is yet to come, and I have no idea what it is. Because that's the way my life has really worked. Meeting Carol, to becoming an actor, to all of the best things in my life have been accidents, have just happened to me. And I've had the good sense to recognize it. It was an open call. When I showed up at the soundstage, there were probably maybe 50 actors there. And Francis, he picked 4 guys, and he said, here's the deal. You're in a boat, the engine is off, you're floating down the Mekong River, and you're having an argument who the Playmate of the Year should be. And they begin to have this argument. Doing great improvisational work, yelling at each other. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I guess at a certain point, I rolled my eyes, kind of like this. And Francis stopped the improv. He said, I saw that, Scott. These people are doing serious work. I don't need you making a comment on this work. Why did you do that? And I said, it wasn't that the work was bad, but these guys are on a boat with the engine turned off, floating down the Mekong River. You scream and yell like that, you're going to have a mortar round in your laps in 5 seconds. And Francis looked at me and turned to his AD, and he said, I want him in my movie. I got to the Philippines. It was Friday. Almost everybody was going back to Manila to have their weekend, and I decided I'd just stay on location. That Friday evening, the worst typhoon to hit the Philippines since 1932 came in. Typhoon Didang. Everybody thought we were dead. For 2 days, we lost all contact. We were on an isthmus that was turned into an island. We had to sort of organize the place. There was a woman who was pregnant with twins. Since I delivered my second daughter myself, I was the only person who had any idea of how to do that. So finally, 2-3 days later, Francis came back on a helicopter. All of our sets were destroyed. We obviously had to rebuild things and start all over again. We went down to the edge of a stream that they were going to shoot on, which was now a whitewater because of all the water. And Francis, the insurance adjuster, I think Victoria Storaro, the DP, and 3 or 4 guys got on this boat, and they were going to go out onto the stream to take a look at it. They tied a rope on the back of this boat and let the boat out onto the stream, thinking if the stream carries it downstream very quickly, they could pull it back. And I'm watching this from about 50 yards away. I was not that long out of the Marine Corps, always had a knife. And when I saw what was happening, I just realized the minute the tide gets that boat, it's going to snap it straight downstream, and the rope is going to pull the back down, and the boat's going to sink. So the minute they let it go, I started running towards the rope, dove at it, cut the rope, didn't sink. Later on that night, Francis said, you saved my life. And I said, I don't know if I did or not. I just acted on instinct. And Francis said, you've helped me out so much. I can write you a better part than you were cast. Just tell me what you want to do, and I'll write it right now. And I said, I want to be in the end of the movie. And he said, what? And I went, yeah, I want to be in the part of the end of the movie with Marlon Brando and Dennis Hopper. And Francis said, I'm sorry, Scott, but that's the only part of the movie that's completely cast. There's nothing in it for you. I mean, you could play Captain Colby, the guy that went up the river ahead of Martin, but it's a tiny part, very few lines. But if you want to do that, I'm good to my word. And I said, I do.
Colby.
I realized at the time that acting is serving an apprenticeship. You really can't learn how to act in school or from a book. And I was going to be around, arguably, America's greatest actor, Francis working with him. So that's how that happened. Carol's laughing right now. I got called from my manager, Johnny Planko, one of my best friends who's no longer with us. But at the time, he said, Marvel is really interested in your playing this character, Stick. I didn't know any of those characters at all. And he said, it's the mentor to the Daredevil that will be played by Charlie Cox. And I went, oh. And I got so angry because I thought, the mentor. Yeah, I'm going to play some old guy who sits behind a desk and sends young actors out to do all kinds of fun, interesting stuff. This is going to be a pain in the butt, and I don't even think I want to do it. And I got stupidly angry. There's a hike south of here that's very steep, and in furor, I ran up the side of this mountain. It was so steep, and I was so full of myself stupidly with my big dumb ego that I jammed my hip coming down, got home, and they had sent the script. And I started reading the script, and I went, whoa, this is a blind assassin who's an expert with swords and knives and comes out of this incredible, dark, crazy background and has adopted this kid. I've never even played blind. And all of a sudden I felt stupid because I went from hating the idea of the part to loving the actuality of the part. Nice catching up. I remember when I met the stunt coordinator, he said, do you know anything about martial arts? And I went, yeah, a little bit. And he said, what about martial arts with knives and swords? And I said, yeah, a little bit. He said, well, how long have you been doing this stuff? And I said, kind of since I was 10 years old. And I remember he had a couple of fake rubber, they were long knives. And I said, want to spar a little bit? And he said, sure. So we were knocking over racks of dresses, and after about probably 2 minutes, he just stopped in the middle of it. You can do all this stuff better than me. Why? I'm not going to double you with any of this. And at the time, I had just met a guy who has become my Sifu, Dan Anderson. His dojo is Broadway and Canal. And so when I wasn't doing the TV show in Brooklyn, I was at Anderson's just playing with knives and swords and stuff like that. I was in Europe and I got a package in the mail and it was from Larry Kasdan. He said, here, I wrote this part for you. What do you think? And I read Silverado and I yelled, Yahoo! And threw the script up in the air and danced around the hotel room. I was so happy. So Larry wrote that sucker for me.
You men, stay with your wagons and your families. Get rolling, keep your eyes peeled.
Wait a minute. Even if you do get the money, how do we know you'll come back?
Well, if we don't, you can keep my brother.
First thing, he said, is there anyone here who can't ride horses? And Danny Glover and I took one big step forward. And everyone else didn't. I always consider it to be unwise to pretend you can do something you can't. Danny and I were given by the Wranglers horseback riding lessons every day up until when we began shooting. About 4 days before we began shooting, Larry Kasdan picked the horses he wanted each one of us characters to ride. And for me, it was a huge quarter horse, the size of a Clydesdale, but a pure quarter horse, gray, named Ajax. And he told the wrangler, Fred, he said, I want Scott on that horse. And Fred said, no, that's my own horse. Stunt riders can't ride that horse. He just turned 5, so he's very young, and he's already 2 times world steer roping champion. If you get near this horse with a pair of spurs on, he's going to kill you. And I said, you know what? Why don't you saddle the horse and let's see if the horse tries to kill me or not. So as I was walking out towards this big horse, I remember an animal trainer, a woman named Barbara Woodhouse, saying that horses communicate with each other by blowing into each other's noses. So I'm walking out, and I walk up to this big horse, and he kind of looks at me. And I said, to begin with, Ajax, I'm supposed to tell you I'm the boss. Guess what? I'm not. You're way bigger than me. You're way stronger. I don't know anything about riding. I'm talking to the animal. I said, so you're in charge. You're the boss. And he brought his nose right up to my face. So when he did, I blew in his nose. And he blew back at me and hit me with a wad of snot the size of a snowball, like right in my face. I wiped it off, and he just stood there. I put my foot in the stirrups, got up on him, sat in the saddle. He didn't move. I went, he starts walking. I'm thinking, I don't even feel myself motioning to the left. He goes to the left. I do to the right. He moves to the right. I touch him with my heels. Now, this is a world champion steer roper. I touch him with my heels. He goes from a walk to a straight out hard gallop. But I'm comfortable on him, and at one point, we go to the left, we go to the right. It's like being on a sports car. At one point, I think I want him to stop. I drop my heels and say, whoa, this horse is used to jerking steers on their butts. So he does like that. I go over his head and land in the ground. Luckily, I didn't break anything, but the minute I landed on the ground, Ajax trotted over to me, put his big muzzle on my face, and started rubbing me with his head. He fell in love with me. People see that movie now and they think I'm an expert rider. I'm not. I still really don't know how to ride horses. It's just that this monster, phenomenal athlete loved me. I had a part in a Western called The Great Northfield, Minnesota Raid, directed by Phil Kaufman. I had to go to Universal to meet the producers and just get to know them. And the producers walked in. Phil said, this is Scott Glenn, he's going to be playing this part. And they said, great, we just want to meet you, great, so we'll see you on location. I hop on my motorcycle, I drive back to Venice where we're living. The phone is ringing, I pick it up, it's Phil Kaufman. He said, I couldn't let an agent or someone else tell you this, Scott. You're not going to be in my movie. You're half an inch too tall. And I remember saying, I'll wear moccasins. I'll drop my knees down a little bit. A half an inch. He said, I'm sorry. It's not going to work. But the next time I have a film where I have real control, I'm going to send you the script and you get to pick your part. I get sent the right stuff. I called Phil Kaufman up and I said, I know what I want to play. And he thought I was going to say Chuck Yeager or maybe John Glenn. And I did not. I said, I want to do Alan Shepard. And there was a long pause. And he said, Alan Shepard, well, that's kind of a comedic part. And I said, yeah, I know. It's funny. That's right. That's what I want to do. I want to be the icy commander.
Dear Lord, please don't let me fuck up.
I didn't quite copy that. Say again, please. Right.
I said everything's A-okay.
And he said, I'm good to my word, Scott. You want to be Alan Shepard? You are Alan Shepard. Would you like to meet him? And I said, absolutely not. I want home movies of him as far back in his life as possible. I want everything I can see recorded about him. But I don't want to meet the guy himself, because if you play somebody and they know that their image is going to be exploded on a screen the size of a 4-story building, they will, even without intending it, edit themselves. And I didn't want that. I wanted Alan Shepard, the inside of Alan Shepard, to be my creation.
Mr. Glenn, you are way out of line. Each man here has volunteered to do a job and doing many things above and beyond the strict call of duty.
Such as bringing girls up to your room in the middle of the night?
And foregoing any semblance of an orderly family life. And Mr. Glenn, as long as a man uses good sense, what he does with his zipper or his wick is his own business.
My favorite review I've ever gotten in my whole life was after we finished the film. Then Admiral Shepard wrote a note to Phil Kaufman, and he said, please show this to Scott Glenn. He said, Mr. Glenn, you got me almost perfect. I have no criticism. You only missed one thing, and that is you ain't anywhere near as good looking as I am. Jonathan Demme was a good friend of ours. He called me up and he asked me to come to New York. There's this part and I want you to play it in Silence of the Lambs. I'm going to send you to Washington. So I went and I spent a period of time sitting in on cases, case studies. Still have bad dreams about some of the stuff I was exposed to. And I haven't led a very sheltered or easy life. So the stuff I was privy to, the human condition at a degree of darkness I never knew existed. So it was rough in that way.
And you're to tell him nothing personal, Starling. Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head. Just do your job, but never forget what he is.
When we did the table read, the description of me and Jody when we meet, it said, the relationship between these two people is strange. Are they father and daughter, mentor and student, boyfriend and girlfriend? Jonathan, at the time as we were reading, he said, forget all that, guys. You can't play that. There's no way you can play that complicated a relationship. Okay, cut to 2 or 3 weeks into shooting the film. There's a scene when Jody is coming out of her office, getting on the limo to go to West Virginia. She had a hard time getting in the limo. I opened the back door and I took her arm to help her into the limo, and Jonathan yells, cut, cut, cut. He comes running up to us. He said, Scott, please don't. I don't want you to touch Jody. And Jody said, yeah, he was just being polite. And Jonathan said, remember when we did the table reading and I told you guys there's no way in the world you can play that relationship? Guess what? I've been looking at dailies and that relationship is exactly there already. And Scott, I know if you physically touch her, it's all going to be blown. I only want you to touch Jody twice in this whole movie. When she's gone through the experience of dealing with this serial killer and someone has died at her hands, I want you to walk out of that house and put your arm over her shoulder. And at the very end of the film, I want you to shake her hand. And that handshake will be so loaded. That's what a great director is all about. Great directing is having that kind of sensitivity and being able to make those kind of calls. Carol and I had moved up here to Idaho. Driving back, we stopped off at Paramount to see Jim Bridges, who directed me in the first movie I'd ever done, something called Baby Maker. He looked at me, he said, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I'm doing a movie that you're perfect for the bad guy. Stick around town for 3 days, meet the producers, meet the star who has cast approval, and I think I can make this happen. And I said, no, came up here. 2 weeks later, the phone rings, and it's Jim Bridges again. And he said, okay, now I'm on location in Houston. Paramount doesn't want you to do this part. They don't know who you are. Come down to Houston, and we can make this thing happen. I hop in my pickup. On my way to Houston, I stop outside of Huntsville Prison because I know the character I'm playing. And as I'm parked there, these two guys who I know from another time in my life, who were friends of Freddie Fender's, Baltimore Huerta. And these guys are pistoleros, the real thing. And one of them walks up to me in my truck and he said, hey, Gato, what are you doing here? Oh, you doing a movie? What are you playing? I said, bank robber. And they go, hey, our buddy, he's a gringo. Bank robber, he's getting out today. You want to meet him? I mean, my God, what a gift. So I hung out with these guys for about a day, and then I got rid of them because I wanted to go try to get a movie and not wind up in jail. Drove down to Houston, Irving Azoff, who wanted me to do the part, Deborah Winger, who wanted me to do the part, Jim Bridges, who wanted me to do the part, and John Travolta, God bless him, he also wanted me to do the part. So kind of over Paramount's objections, they said yes, and I started one of the 3 parts of my life that really played me.
Mexicans say, you eat the worm, you're gonna see visions.
Visions of what?
I don't know. I ate a whole mess of them. I've never seen a vision yet. I sure feel good.
You know, I talk about being lucky. I got on a bull in the Huntsville Prison Rodeo. I was just going to sit on the bull, and then they were going to cut, and the stunt rider was going to actually get on the bull, riding a long shot. I'm sitting on this bull, and I don't know where the camera is. I think, how close are they? So when I take a rap, I take what's illegal in PRC, but all the cons do at the Huntsville Prison Rodeo, which is called a suicide wrap. Instead of just wrapping the rig around your hand once, you put lighter fluid and rosin on your glove, and then you thread it between your little finger and your ring finger. You take the leather glove, pound it down, now you're locked in. The bad part about that is if a bull throws you and you have a suicide rap, you're what they call hung up. You're with a bull wherever it goes, and it probably will kill you or jerk your arm literally out of your body, or who knows. But I thought, God forbid, some ex-con sees this movie and sees I didn't take a suicide rap. Because my biggest critics are always the people that actually do the job. So anyway, I took the suicide rap. None of us had figured that the bulls are used to being in the let-out gate a matter of seconds before they go. This was like 15 minutes while they were lighting the shot. And finally, the bull, on camera, decided, I'm leaving whether the gate is open or not, and just jerked up out of the gate. If I hadn't had a suicide rap, I would have slid down behind its butt and probably been kicked to death. Everything literally went into slow motion. I mean, I had all the time in the world, and I looked up, I grabbed the tail, I popped it loose, we went down, the bull went forward, I hit the ground with a chipped collarbone and a concussion. I don't really remember this, but what I actually did was jump right back on my feet, climb back on the let-up gate, jump back on the bull, and I saw blood all around the wood of the gate, and I said, is that my blood? Is that my blood? And it wasn't. It was like one of the stock handlers had reached in to grab me to try to save my life and been hit with the bull's horn and shattered his cheek, and it was his blood all over the place. And I said, is that my blood? And they said, no, Scott, it's not your blood. I said, you don't understand. If it is, you got to get hair and makeup here because it's got to match the shot. It's got to match the shot. I don't remember any of that. The Leftovers was the single best acting experience I ever had in my life, due in no small part to Damon Lindelof. 3 times in my life, I've had parts that played me, and my job was just to get out of the way. One was Urban Cowboy. One was a play I did off Broadway called Killer Joe, and the third was The Leftovers, where the writing was so deep inside me. When I woke up in the morning, I'd just say to myself, Scott, your job today is just stay out of the way. The other great blessings I had, aside from Damon, Mimi Leder as a director and Justin Theroux as the star. And I love those 3 people. Without them, there would have been no performance from me. If you're asking me when I started losing my shit, contrary to the professional opinion of others, I maintain my shit remains intact. I remember with the longest monologue, Damon told me, he said, it's the longest speech I've ever written in my life. I said, what is it, a couple pages? He said, no, actually it's 7 pages. When it came time to do that scene, and we were in the Outback in Australia, Mimi was going to do it in cuts, and I said, I think I know this whole thing. Can we just do the whole thing? She said, sure, we'll do it once and see what you miss. So we went through the whole, I didn't miss any of it.
I used to hear voices. They started about 5 minutes after it happened, after people disappeared. So they put me in an institution.
We went through the whole thing, and Mimi said, oh, that was great, Scott. Remember when you picked up the tape recorder and you almost started crying when you were listening to your son talk? And I said, no. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I don't remember picking up the tape recorder. She said, what do you remember from the scene? I said, not much. I remember you saying action and saying cut. So you weren't directing yourself at all. And I went, She said, would you be willing on the second take so that a little bit of you can hang off and watch it, so that, because if you can't direct yourself, I can't direct you either. I can't say, at this point, would you be willing to do that? And I said, no. I said, actors live their whole life, not just actors, artists, for these moments when it does you. And I'm not willing to do that. She said, what do you suggest we do? And I said, just a lot of takes. She said, it'll wear you out. And I said, no. So we did, I don't know, 6, 7 takes, something like that. Mimi, rather than trying to take control one way, just let me go until she saw what she wanted. And the whole experience of doing that show was that way.
I believe the rains will come, and with them, a great flood. I have to sing to make it stop.
It did me in such a profound way. I miss it a lot. Miss all those people. Wish the show was still on the air. Roughly, it's a disaster film, and the disaster is a comet is headed for the Earth. First, they think it's going to be a near miss, and then the people that track those things figured, oh, whoops, no, it's going to hit. It's going to be the kind of event that killed the dinosaurs. So the Defense Department decides to grab a group of, 50 people, bring these people into these bunkers in Greenland to restart civilization all over again. And it's essentially a family that are in some kind of crisis with themselves. So we track their journey trying to get to Greenland. I play someone who is a widower who deeply misses his wife to the extent where he's not really concerned with living or dying, but very much loves this family that's coming by.
My Mary went to heaven in this place. And when the good Lord's ready for me to join her, I'm going to be right here in this place too. Bags packed.
That's what excites me now about this film. And also a little shout out to Rick Waugh, the director, who did a phenomenal job of directing this film and directing me in the film. A little shout out to him. Thank you all for once again watching me, and these characters that I've played that are iconic, really a lot more because of you than because of me.